Today, watch this.
But the food task is more graphic. The world is losing 1% of its agricultural land capacity per annum. Per annum. China set aside 200 million hectares 10 years ago as reserved agricultural land. They've already lost 10,000 hectares of that. I mean, it's just disappearing just by urban sprawl. So I guess, while it's all right to say you go down to Woolies and Coles, and I'm pleased to see what I predicted, because I also chaired the bloody milk inquiry and Coles and Woolies thing, the $1 a litre stuff, where I said they were going to... I actually called some people in our party room, if you know what the word F stands for, wits, very loudly, because they were pure market people. And I said, well, they said, well, so what if the dairy farmers go broke, is what they said. We'll get our milk from somewhere else. That's what they said, and so I told them what I thought. Well now, just now, and I chaired this inquiry, the milk processors have left it till now to pass back the costs of the $1 a litre milk in the supermarkets. So they're going from 46 cents a litre for market milk back to 32 cents, and for manufacturing milk, that is to make cheese and stuff, they're going back from 22 cents to 12 cents a litre. That is well below the cost of production, and that is because in that inquiry I discovered that Coles and Woolies have got 82% of the prepackaged market, and ACCC, which doesn't have the regulation to control it. They weren't doing it at a loss. The processors, which are regional monopolies, they're all multinationals, offered them a price that was a 40% discount wholesale to what the ordinary milk vendors could get it for. So the guy that was supplying the the service stations and cafes and that, he could buy his milk. He was paying 40% more for his milk from the same processors as Coles and Woolies were. So I mean, obviously that wasn't going to work. So the chickens are coming home to roost on this now. So there is a great challenge, and there is a great need for everyone in Sydney to be here today to understand the issues that, like most things in life, you take them for granted, you don't appreciate them until you lose them. Now, can I tell you, finally, I guess we've got to finish, but I'm happy to stay all day, till I go and see Katrina Hoskinson. You must understand, and it's something that can think through, that what we're witnessing is a change to the order of the globe. Like, it wasn't that many years ago, and the Foreign Takeovers Act, by the way, was written when we used to send telegrams. And it's on the record. I mean, John Phillips, who was the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank when my mate from Junee, Bernie Fraser, was the Governor, said it's out of date. It's a thing of the past. It was there when the cricket team, remember when the cricket team used to go to England and play cricket? It took them 6 weeks on the boat, and they'd train on the boat, etc. They go overnight now. Marvellous how things change. Well, the same thing's happening with modern communication, transport, free trade agreements, etc. What we're facing up to is a redefinition of sovereignty. And under the committee I'm chairing, I've just had a yelling match with some of our own mob as I walked up here today. Because what they're not defining is the difference between sovereign investment and corporate investment. They say, which is true, sovereign investment is essential, it's been going on for hundreds of years or whatever. The new player on the block is sovereign investment, where what used to be done with an army is now you can do it with a cheque-book. And places can come, because of our slack regulation here, you can come into Australia now, and I can assure you it's all on the record. I've had the Foreign Affairs Department, the Taxation Office and FIRB into the inquiry. It is possible, if you go about it the right way, to come into Australia and acquire our means of production, and this particular hearing was about agricultural production, and treat it as if it was part of your own homelands back home. You can avoid the tax system, you can distort the supply and demand market by not participating in the market and dealing direct, which then sets you up not to pay tax. And if you're not looking for return on your capital, but to secure a task, as the Chinese and Arabs and others have got to do in the future for food thing, then you're not looking for return on your investment, so you can go in harder, pay more, because unlike super funds or private corporates or private families who've got to explain to the bank a return on your money, and to give you an example that close to home up there, Joe Clayton was the chief executive of Shenhua. He's left, and I know him well. Shenhua bought 42 farms around their mining site in Gunnedah at up to 3 or 4 times its real value. And I rang Joe and I said, 2 things, Joe. 3 things. I said, why does the girl out the front who greets you when you walk into the office come from Beijing? Why couldn't you have got an Australian? And he said, well, that's the way they want to do it. I said, well, why did they pay $300 million for the exploration rights when next door BHP paid $100 because they wanted it? And why did they pay all these farmers all this money? To get them out of the road. I mean, they are not looking for a return on their money. So that sales up there at Gunnedah, that flows on into the Valuer General's average of sales across the district, which becomes the new Valuer General's values. That in turn flows on to the rating base, which affects people that have got to make a living out of by growing and producing things. So this is a serious problem. And as I've said to Donald McGeechy in the hearing, I asked him a question. You never ask a question unless you expect the right answer, but he gave the wrong one. I said, what would happen if we sold 30 or 40% of Australia's agricultural production to another country? This is Donald McGeechy, NFF, Reserve Bank board member. He said it wouldn't matter. Even the Greens on the committee laughed. I said, but hang on. If we do that, and they go about it the right way, everyone knows that Myers did that tricky bookkeeping and avoided 800 million, was it, in tax by going through Luxembourg in the sale? You may recall that. So with the right paperwork, you can avoid the tax system. At what point, if we allow this to happen, do we lose control of our supply and demand if someone else is dealing direct? At what point do we lose control if we lose control of our sovereignty because we lose control of our revenue base because they're transferring something that's not for sale? And if I grow wheat on my farm, put in the silo at the farm, it's not for sale, I don't pay tax on it. If I transfer it to a farm out at bloody Hay on the farm over at Stock and Bingle, it's not for sale, I don't pay tax on it. If I feed it to the sheep, I don't pay tax on it. I might pay tax on the sheep when I sell them. Same thing applies. If you're a sovereignty and do your bookwork right, same entity here as you got back home, you transfer it and it's not for sale, there's no tax. So how much of that can we afford to escape our revenue base before we lose critical mass of paying people's pensions, hospital care, etc., etc.? And the government officials just looked at me with a blank stare. And I rang Alan Mitchell, who's the editorial financial writer for the Financial Review, and I rang that other character that's got the story on the front page yesterday. I said, have you thought any of this stuff through? Because they all argue, foreign investment, you've got to bring in it, which you do. It's just that you've got to regulate it so we get a benefit. And there are that many withholding tax arrangements and blinds and trusts and things. We don't have the capacity to actually vet them. I mean, they said to me in the hearing, I said, well, there's a mob, you may be aware, it's just bought a whole lot of wool growing country around Cooma, etc., woolen mill in China. I said to them, what happens if they decide just to transfer it in a similar corporate entity back to China and it's not for sale? How would you get them to pay tax? Oh, well, we'd have to think about that, Senator. We might have to do transfer pricing arrangements. And I said, how would you do that? Because if they produce 1,000 bales of wool and they triple dump it, which is what you do, you push 3 bales into one with bands and put them into a container to get the right weight for the container. How would you know whether it was Dags or 3/8 combing? Who's going to go and have a look? Don't know. So this is a serious problem. So the coal seam gas thing can't be seen on its own to get the public interested. You've got to understand that the global food challenge for the future is far greater than the global energy task. And everyone's focused on the global energy task. It doesn't make sense. But it's not an issue at the present time because you can go to the supermarket and buy your tucker. And as late as yesterday, GrainCorp, Cargill's, etc., at that grains conference, which is just a junketing 2 days for a whole lot of executives. The phone call I got here a minute ago was from the chief executive of Cargill's. They said, oh no, look, there's plenty of food in Australia, there's plenty of whatever. Well, here we are. We want to lock up Northern Australia. We don't want to use it. Here we are. We've got declining opportunities in the south. And we're too bloody lazy with our capital, as the AA company David Foley has said. They'd like to do Ord Stage 2 and 3. The Chinese mob that Bob Hawke, and good luck to him if he gets a commission, have brought into Australia to buy the Ord for direct. They want to do sugar direct, not participate in the global market or the Australian market. They said to the West Australian government, they said to the Northern Territory government, there's 14,000 hectares there, yeah, we'll agree to buy yours, that is the third of the land that's in the Northern Territory that's part of the Ord scheme, but we're not going to buy it unless you let us have the stuff that's in West Australia. And the AA company and others like them want to use Australian super funds to do it. And I say we should get the next generation of young farmers to do it. Instead of that, we're too bloody tired and too bloody lazy, and thank you very much.